Welcome to the Hope Discovered podcast. I'm Elaine Russell Reolfi. I lead CommQuest Services, and we're so happy you joined us today. And by us, I mean my two colleagues, Dr. Osa, who is a physician and our Medical Director of Psychiatric Services, and Dr. Michelle, who is a supervising counselor and our Chief Clinical Officer. So about 2 months ago, I broke my ankle in several places. And this is what inspires today's podcast. Suddenly my life turned upside down, and I'm an independent, busy person. And I would tell my friends, I'm just not built for immobility. I don't have the patience for it. What I found over the course of weeks and months is that it wasn't the physical recovery that was difficult. It was the mental health toll. It was the frustration of dealing with immobility. And so it just strikes me that the more people I talk to, they all say the same thing about these situations. The helplessness, the frustration, and sometimes the depression that you feel can be a lot. Because being sidelined unexpectedly by a physical challenge is not something any of us prepare for, and it can be very isolating. So the docs are going to talk to us today about if you find yourself in this situation or someone you know, what is going on and what you can do to be as healthy as possible. So let's start with Dr. Michelle. So what is happening in our minds in this situation?
So I phrase it as there's two different phases to kind of the reaction following a diagnosis or an injury or an illness that just happens suddenly like that. The first 24 to 48 hours, it's really just crisis control. There's, anger and frustration and fear and panic, and a lot of people feel overwhelmed. They're just trying to wrap their heads around what is going on and what does this mean, and you're dealing with the physical pain of it often. Sometimes it's really scary if it's a diagnosis that maybe is going to be a life-changing diagnosis, and the people around that individual are often in the same situation. They're just trying to make it through those first couple of days. And even in those first couple of days, sleep can be disrupted, again, due to pain or anxiety or things like that. There could just be a disconnection from everything that's going on. Sometimes even a trauma response where folks will just kind of shut down. After my mom got her pretty serious diagnosis, I don't really think she spoke for about 2 days. She just shut down completely, couldn't process any of it. So there's just that first crisis phase. And then after, a couple of days and kind of the new reality sets in, I think people ask themselves a question that's kind of like, okay, now what? Now what am I going to do? And for people that are kind of overachievers, they're busy, they're active people, they often go into what I consider an aggressive planning phase. It's like, okay, I'm going to contact everybody I know that needs to know, and I'm going to rearrange my schedule, and I'm going to reschedule that meeting that I have today for Thursday, because I'm sure I'll feel fine by Thursday. And I'll make sure that, I get those papers turned in. I'm sure by tomorrow I'll be able to work on whatever that report is that I have to get submitted by Friday. And I know I have them. And they're just going down the list of everything that needs to get done and everybody that needs to know and all the things that need to be taken care of. And they're like, I got this. This is fine. They're often still on those pain medications that were given to them at the hospital. Perhaps if they had an injury that was significant, they're high on life. They're going to get this all accomplished, right? They got it. And then about an hour or so into it, the reality of this situation, either it's mental exhaustion hits, physical exhaustion hits, the pain strikes, the pain medication takes over, if that's part of the situation. And they just have to kind of sit back and go, oh, well, okay, that didn't work. That's fine. I'll take a nap and I'll try again, right? That's fine. Like I'll get back up in a couple hours and I'll just reschedule all of this stuff and it'll be fine. And you try it again. You're like, I got this. I got it all. And that cycle can continue for a little bit. And then it becomes clear that there's new limitations, that's not going to work. For some people, this means I need to reach out and ask for help. For some people, this means I'm just going to take my time and take a step back. But there's just this real chaotic feeling. And sometimes when that settles in, kind of in folks' chests, it settles in, there's that beginning of grief of, I don't think I can do this. This is going to be a big difference for me. And what is this going to mean for work? And what is this going to mean for whatever family things I have coming up? And that grief can set in, even if it's for kind of temporary things, but recognizing that whether it's temporary or it's going to be longer, you're not in the same life circumstance that you had, grieving that kind of things that you did and what that meant to you and all of those kinds of pieces. And it can really just set in. And so you can kind of see people take a step back, and try to figure out where to go from there. Oftentimes, sleep continues to be disrupted, whether it's pain or there's other things that are going on. And for some folks, anxiety and depression, after a few days, a few weeks, sometimes can start sneaking in. And for a lot of people, it's difficult to name that emotion. A lot of people don't go, oh, I'm feeling anxiety, or perhaps I'm experiencing depression. Instead, they might not be able to sleep even when the pain isn't getting to them, or they find themselves stopping asking for help. They just withdraw and they stay in their bedroom because it just feels safer. It's just easier. They can just become exhausted. And that can significantly impact everything they do, everything in their life. And it can be debilitating for some people. And we'll talk a little bit later about what do you do and what do you do if that's you, or what do you do if that's someone that you love or you care about, that you're seeing that happen. But the other piece that happens, the family roles change, whether they have kids or it's their partner or whomever it is. The things that their partner was used to them doing, they can't do. And the things that they haven't asked their partner perhaps to do in the past, they now need them to do. So, and it's not comfortable. That can be really uncomfortable for the entire family system.
Yeah.
And it just becomes difficult at that place. So, and one last thing I'll say too, in terms of, again, high achievers and people that are highly independent, is a lot of those folks, they define who they are by what they do.
Yep.
And when you're not able to do the things, and whether it might not be the entire definition of who you are, but it's a piece of it. The activities that you do, the accomplishments that you get every day that you succeed at. And when those are gone, that can feel terrible. And then what do you do, right? When the action goes away, the coping skills go away. So we have to, identify different things that we can do. And I'll throw out there for you, with an ankle injury and not being able to drive, that's a remarkable issue or concern that people don't take seriously. And I can't speak for you. Maybe you'll comment on how you felt, but I can just say,
awful. I feel awful and grumpy about it. Yeah, that I can't drive myself around. It's been over 2 months, and finish.
No, that's exactly it. Right. Yeah. It feels awful. And it's a loss of control. And that's an overriding message we're going to talk about through all of this is there's a loss of independence. There's a loss of control. Folks can feel trapped. They have to ask someone to take them places when they want to go somewhere, when they're used to just getting up and going and doing. And that can be really hard to ask for help. And it can feel it can make people feel helpless. And that's not generally a great feeling for people.
Just last week, we cut the ribbon on the opening of a new women's residential facility. And the final 2 months of that project, I was unable to drive and I couldn't get out there to see the place. And that was one example of a project that was very important to all of us. But the team had it. And it was actually a learning opportunity for me to say, let the team have it, let the team do it, and it's going to be fine. And it was, and they did a fabulous job. They never did need me, but just the sense of being there as a leader and knowing what's happening was so difficult. The other thing that's really interesting about what you say is that it's like, I feel like a case study, but I know that I'm not. What you described happens to everybody. As I talk to friends who had been through these situations, they described the same feelings I was having, and you just described it all perfectly. And I think it can be so isolating because you don't prepare yourself for a situation like that. You can't possibly, right? And so you think you're the only one going through it. And that's why we're talking today. Because if we talk about it, then somebody who's experiencing something bad for the first time might say, okay, this is normal. Would you call it normal? This is a normal response to the situation, to have these feelings?
Typical. It's a typical response.
Right. So, Dr. Osa, you're a psychiatrist. You're going to talk to us about the mental health part of all this, but I'm sure you also feel for the poor MDs who are out there trying to, whether it's an oncologist, an orthopedic doctor, who are trying to tell the patient, this is what we need from you right now. We need you to rest. So how does one reconcile that? And as they're trying to do the right thing that the doctor's telling them to do, but they're struggling.
But when we talk about the healing process, we talk about recovery, it's an active process. Folks don't see what's happened. Again, you have a sudden injury, and you are now sort of, again, out of the acute injury phase, and now you're in the healing phase. There are things happening at the molecular level every single second that is moving you towards recovery. All of the inflammatory markers are now reduced, and there are all these other things occurring. Again, what we experience emotionally and mentally affects that process. And so, being very intentional, which again, that's the difficult part, is again, how does one, reconcile the feeling of grief with the understanding that I have to be fully present in this healing process if I want to have the long-term recovery and the best possible outcome. Let's be honest with what we're feeling, but I am going to have the goal set to be a part of this healing process because there are things that I can do to aid in it. What we know about depression, depressed mood, and anxiety and chronic stress in the healing process, we know that these are barriers to our body's ability to heal. Okay. So a person who is experiencing depression, they don't have the motivation to go do things. They're experiencing the appetite changes. Their sleep is disrupted, not because of the pain from the illness, but for things related to, again, the depression that they're experiencing. And all of these symptoms really undermine the behaviors that would promote healing. Can you imagine that again? If I'm in bed and I've been told, hey, you got to go and engage in physical therapy, but I don't have the motivation to do so. I what's the point? I'm teetering between the grief of what I feel is lost and I don't find myself really wanting to engage in that process. And so this is why, again, making sure that we are recognizing how we're feeling. And then, of course, I'll talk to you about some things to help us along that process. But the other thing is, again, chronic stress and anxiety. So we know that when a person experiencing or there's a perception of stress, feelings that cause us to worry or to feel anxious, we increase our levels of cortisol. This is not promoting healing. Actually, that keeps our body in what we would call kind of like a threat state. And so the body really is, again, you're increasing muscle tension. You're, again, you're working against one's ability to get restorative sleep. All the inflammatory markers that we see go up in that type of state. And so, when we talk about how we are processing our illness, it really has such an impact on the healing process. On the medical side, I know that there's so much that providers want to be able to do for their patients, and we start with the treatment plan. We say, okay, well, want you to do A, B, and C, and D, and sometimes we are able to express to patients how important it is for them to be honest with us about what it is they're experiencing so that we can be partners in their treatment. So a couple of things that I would say in terms of, what are some things that we providers wish that our patients who are facing sudden illness or, again, reconciling or grieving what their lives once were and how they're going to move forward in the face of an active illness. Number one, you are not weak for struggling. There is nothing weak or crazy about a person who is emotionally, they're struggling with a diagnosis that has turned their life upside down. In fact, when I have had patients where this comes up, I'd say to them, if you walked into this office and you told me you were just feeling great after all that you just shared, I'd say something's wrong with this person. So it's a normal part of the human experience after something so sudden that is so life-changing. So that's one thing. The other is really, again, is recognizing that when you are asking for help, that's really, it's not a detour to one's healing. It is truly the very thing that's going to ensure your recovery. And so For those of us who tend to be very self-reliant, we have very busy schedules. Asking for help is probably one of the hardest things for us to do. But again, your providers are there to validate those feelings, and we want to do that. And so, bring us into that conversation, because sometimes we can help you and strategize. How do I ask for help? How do you're facing a new illness that has impacted your daily life. What are some ways in which we can work within our limitation to still get things done, right?
There's probably a sense for some people of feeling like a failure because they can't do all the things they're supposed to do, or they're not being tough enough through their recovery. But I think what you're telling us is that a physician understands and can expect this as they're helping you through whatever.
Absolutely.
So just be frank and direct with the physician.
Absolutely. Yeah. That is the other piece of this. Your treatment plan that your providers are giving to you, it's not a prison sentence. It's a partnership.
Yeah.
If your care provider has told you, I want you to do A, B, C, D, and E, and you're looking at E and you're like, I cannot do this. This is not feasible for me. This is not going to work. Tell your care provider, because the truth is we cannot move forward in tailoring a treatment plan that's going to work for you if I don't know that that's a non-negotiable. And we're there to work with you. We're there to adjust things as we go so that we give you the best possible chance for a great outcome. The other piece of it is you got to be honest when you're doing the stuff and when you're not doing it. Because again, all of our recommendations assume that you're following our recommendations.
So don't tell Dr. Corpy I did all my ankle exercises if I skip them. Just tell him.
Just tell him.
Even if he'll be disappointed in me.
He won't be disappointed. So again, that is,
That's the thing, right?
That is.
I did them, by the way.
Well, again, folks who tend to be very self-reliant, folks who just have been able to get things done and are, again, self-reliant, don't want to disappoint.
No, right.
Those that are in their corner. But that's not the case. It's just in order for us to gauge where you are in your recovery process, knowing that you did or did not do certain activities or follow certain recommendations helps to guide what we do next along this journey. And so the honesty is a huge part of it. And we providers, we want the honesty. We absolutely require it. The last thing I would say on that is that, particularly because it is a very normal human reaction to be in recovery, and have moments of utter frustration. Yeah. Anger, in fact.
Yeah.
Let us know. Because again, one, we want to validate your feelings. We want to normalize those feelings that you have. And then we want to say, okay, what can we do? Given how you're feeling right now, what are some things we can do to improve that feeling while also staying the course? But I can't help you stay the course if I don't have all the information. And so, I'll finish with saying that really the healing process, it's a very active process. Yeah. And so the person who feels like they're just in their bed, they can't do anything. No, resting, you are doing exactly what your body needs. It is allowing for time and space for the body, which is always working towards healing. If I cut my finger, I don't have to do anything. My body starts healing. And so I think the most difficult part for many is just the time.
Yeah.
It's really tough. But if you allow for the time, the outcomes, some of those, the outcomes that we try to avoid, again, the chronic pain syndromes that people can experience when, again, they've tried to do too much too soon.
Yeah.
They don't realize it, but they may be doing damage to the very area that's trying to recover. And so this active process requires us to be so deliberate to protecting the very thing that is helping us to do, which is our mind.
Got it. So, okay, so the person is sitting in the bed like they're supposed to. They're resting like they're supposed to. Are there maybe 3 to 5 daily activities, maybe one of you could share, to get through that moment? Like, I know I'm supposed to rest. I'm listening to everything you just said. But what are the things that we can do whilst we're sitting there to get through it easier? Dr. Michelle, do you have ideas?
Sure. The first thing I would say is pace yourself.
Okay.
So assuming based on what you just said, you're taking care of yourself, you're staying in bed when you need to, you're not pushing yourself, you're doing those things, is you pace yourself according to how your body feels, right? Your body will speak to you through some of this and tell you, okay, it's time to rest, right? It's time to put your foot up. It's time to, sit down, take a nap, do what you need to do, and allow that, follow that. And that's okay. That's not a failure. I love saying that, right? That's not a failure. So pace yourself and set expectations that are manageable. And if you're not quite sure what's manageable, chat with someone, chat with your physician, chat with your PT, chat with your, your friends, the people around you. Like, you think I'm doing too much? They'll probably tell you, right? They'll probably tell you. So that's number one. Number two is set a schedule that does work for you. So even if someone's in bed, it might be, first thing in the morning, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get up and I'm going to, have my first cup of coffee. And then I'm going to text, I'm going to text Abby. I'm going to text my friend and see how things are going. I'm going to check in because that'll make me feel better. And then at, 1:00, I'm going to talk with my sister because that makes me feel better. Or I'm going to, if you're allowed, if you're in a position where I'm going to check emails just for like 5 minutes, but set a schedule for yourself, including the sleep in all of this is so important, and sleep hygiene and trying to, continue to go to bed at the same time, continue to sleep when your body needs it, but also maintain just healthy sleep can do so much for you. And asking for help, of course, is part of that. So staying connected, huge in all of this. And then there's lots of skills, and the internet can be a dangerous place, but it can also be an incredibly rich resource. So things that are relaxation skills, box breathing, slow breathing.
Can you take just a second on what is
Sure.
box breathing?
So basically box breathing is just a technique where you breathe in for 4 counts, you hold for 4 counts, you breathe out for 4 counts. Repeat, go 4 counts, and then repeat over and over again. And there are literally thousands of different breathing exercises that are out there, and some work for different people. There's, relaxation exercises, muscle relaxation exercises that you start at the top of your head and you go all the way down to your toes and you relax all the way down. Grounding techniques. So one I love is just grounding techniques of, what are 5 things I can see? What are 4 things I can hear? 3 things I can smell? That just brings you back to your body. It brings you back to the present. It can calm your mind, because sometimes people's minds are just racing. They won't settle. They just won't settle. And so there's lots of things that you can do, and your physicians and your caregivers are going to be able to share those with you too, and give you resources for those sorts of things. So those are big chunks of it. Keep in mind that recovery isn't linear. So oftentimes, I'm sure you have found this, you're like, I'm having a really good day. So I'm going to go downstairs and I'm going to do this. And then maybe I'll stand up and do the dishes a little bit. And then an hour later, you're regretting that decision, right? Because it was just too much too fast. So there's that space of not pushing yourself, setting appropriate expectations. And then I think a great deal of it is mindset as well. It's how we're thinking about what is happening with you. So Dr. Osa, you referenced healing is a job, is you're doing something. Doing nothing can be doing something, but having to tell yourself that can be a big piece of it. You're like talking yourself down all the time. Setting small goals and celebrating them.
Okay.
That could be huge. So if you're stuck in a bed, it might be, okay, I'm going to read 1 chapter of this book. And that's your goal. Or I'm going to do 3 out of the 5 exercises that the doctor said that I'm going to. So if I can't get through all 5, because I just can't, but today I'm going to try 3. And maybe tomorrow I'll try 4. And then I'm going to celebrate the fact that I did 4. And one of the pieces we haven't talked as much about is the relationships with people around you. So I want to talk briefly about kind of your constant companions, right? That person is there, and it can be exhausting for both people. If I'm continually having to ask for help, and I haven't had to ask for help ever, I feel like I'm a burden, but I still have to do it because I don't have an option. That can feel terrible. And then the other partner, they're doing the best they can, but this isn't their gig either. And so one of the things I always encourage people that have an illness or an injury or a big change is bring in reinforcements and let the companion know that they can do that. So schedule for some friends to come in so that the companion can go and just go to Starbucks and recharge and regroup and like do their own thing, which will help the person who is injured or who is not feeling well. They can let go of that for a period. Like they can go, okay, I feel better because my partner is taking care of themselves. And their partner gets a break and can refresh and can recharge and go, okay, I feel like a real human again. Let me, now I can go back and I can do those things again. And one last thing, and then I'm sure you have some other ideas as well, is in terms of a mindset, and this isn't necessarily always the case, but sometimes it can be a real gift to allow someone to help you. Mm-hmm. So think about when you've had a friend or a family member, someone that you care and you love, you care about and you love, and you say, what can I do to help you? And they say, you can buy me a coffee. You can bring me a coffee and a scone because that would be delightful. You're like, whew, that's great. I know exactly what they want. And I know how to do it and I can do that. And I feel really good about being able to help them. So it can be a gift. People don't think about it that way. They think of it as like they're taking, they're being selfish or they're taking, but it can be a gift to allow another person to help you because they can feel really good about what they have done and they've accomplished. And so it's a win-win for everybody involved.
One of the people I talked to, people were always asking, how can I help? And the normal response when you're a self-reliant person is, I'm fine, nothing. Mm-hmm. She said one day, take me to Target. I haven't been out of the house. And her friend was so happy to be able to do something concrete. And they went to Target in a wheelchair, and it was the best thing ever. So what advice would you have for a loved one or a friend who's trying to strike the balance between acknowledging the reality of what the person's going through and maybe toxic positivity? How does a loved one or a friend strike that balance?
No, absolutely. And I love that toxic positivity. I think what Dr. Michelle said was spot on. And, the mindset, recognizing that, loved ones, friends, they want to be there for you. They want to, it really, for many folks, it's an honor to be able to just, in someone's time of need, to be able to pay them back or to just be able to be there as a source of support for them. First, listening. Yeah. I think we all can relate to being in a position where, again, life changes suddenly. And if you're a very self-reliant individual, again, all of a sudden it's like, okay, maybe you're the person that people tend to go to for problem solving. And now here you are, not quite sure how to navigate your own journey. And so having that listening ear, first and foremost, so that you know what it is a person who's going through this, what they actually need. But the beauty in having the support system and relying and reaching out to your support system is that, when you're in it, you don't see all of the things around you that's impacting you. And so sometimes just having those individuals that they have observations and they're looking out for you. So maybe it's not toxic positivity, but, it's, again, holding you accountable, and in a way that doesn't undermine the successes that you are making along your journey, but it allows you to have some perspective. Mm-hmm. Dr. Michelle mentioned even, when you have loved ones that are, okay, if you can help me to do this thing or to, delegating some of these tasks and planning, having that part of the planning process. I would even go as far as to say that if you have an individual, a loved one that can be a part of the discussions you have with your care providers, because again, you go in to see your care provider and they ask you some questions and you say, oh yeah, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And then they may ask, okay, well, I see you've got so-and-so with you. What are you seeing? And they may be seeing something totally different. Again, so as long as it's being led with love, they are adding perspective to your journey, because again, it's easy to, if you're sitting in a boat that's actually moving on the sea, you don't feel like it's moving because you're not actively doing anything, but it's moving. Yeah. And those around you can see that and can tell you if your boat's going off in this one direction, but you're just sitting in there healing, but let's heal in the right direction. And so again, I think listening, number one, but number two, again, having folks who are willing to give you a healthy perspective along the journey.
That's great. Well, as we talk through all of this, and you've given everybody lots of good tips, and both of you have been fabulous as I've gone through my journey, I know that I'm going to be fine. I broke my ankle. It's healing. It's good. For people who don't know what the future holds, they have an illness that's trying to be diagnosed, meanwhile they have to rest. It probably adds another level of complexity for them because the path isn't clear ahead. Any special advice from either of you for people who are also in an uncertain position?
I say this to folks before crises tend to happen, is being like having established care when it comes to your mental health. But when a sudden illness or something life-changing occurs, sooner rather than later, even if you don't think you'll need it, even if you're not sure, again, you haven't quite named the fact that you've been feeling depressed. You just know that, this feeling of, I'm feeling some sense of hopelessness. I'm not feeling like myself. I'm leaning on my support around me, but, I'm withdrawing a bit more. The minute that starts to set in, and maybe even when it doesn't, get into care. Reach out, see where you can get either a counselor or therapist. Again, if medications are something down the road that may be needed, again, you start with therapy because that can lend itself to, what else may be needed along the journey. But I'm a firm believer in having care established before the crises. But if you're an individual that finds yourself in a situation, and again, it may be that the recovery is longer term, perhaps I say get into care as soon as possible so that you've got the established care, you've got an additional source of support along the journey.
What would you say to somebody who might have a sense of guilt about seeking help because others have it worse? I should be able to deal with this. What would you say to them?
A response.
Please, yeah.
I say it all the time. Say it with counseling client. Pain is not a competition. Pain is not a competition. It's like saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry you broke an ankle. Glad you didn't break both." Right? Like it's very diminishing to have your pain or your circumstance compared to others. Everyone has their own journey, and it's okay to take care of yourself, and it's okay to not be okay. I would add that to the question about chronic illnesses, or if this is going to be a long-term thing, is it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay for other people to realize that you're not feeling okay. They want to help you. They want to be there for you. Because that guilt is a big part of it, right? Guilt for having to ask for help, guilt for not being able to do everything at work. And so sometimes it's just sharing the fact that you feel guilty and what you're feeling guilty about, so that if there's anything that other people around you can do to address whatever those pieces are, they're going to help you do that. So much of this we started out talking about is communication.
Yeah.
Communicating about how you're doing, how you're feeling, and the folks around you communicating with you as well. These are the things I see happening. What about this? How is that? So just encouraging that communication and trying to kind of identify where are those places that you feel guilty, and are there things that can be done by you or other people around you to provide that support, so we can kind of notch that down a little bit.
So much good advice, and it seems like there's a whole spectrum of feelings you could be having, and I think you're offering people the advice to be proactive and seeking help and being honest with all your caregivers. But is there a sign that you absolutely should seek professional mental health care in a situation like this? What should we watch for in ourselves or in people we care about that would say, okay, this is a moment we need to take that extra step?
I think one for that we tend to pay close attention to, and if a loved one notices it, or if a person themselves start to notice that it's out of proportion with how they typically behave, is really significant withdrawal from others.
Okay.
Is a big one. Of course, we all sort of look at what type of thoughts you're having. If someone's having thoughts that would suggest or that eliciting sort of safety concern. But one of the things that folks, we may notice it and may be lingering and we don't necessarily pay it attention, is really that withdrawing. The minute you start to notice that you yourself, you're not even finding yourself enjoying being around others, you tend to want to be with by yourself much more than you have before. And if it's not something that's typical for you.
Good advice.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go right ahead.
I think another piece to that is when someone starts thinking about, is it worth it for me to stay around?
Oh, yeah.
So I've worked with one individual, sticks out really strongly in my mind, who received a significant diagnosis, but with treatment and things like that, had several good years. But from the outset, depression was so impactful for her, and her whole kind of focus was, I'm a burden on everyone around me, and I'm just going to be more of a burden. They would be better off if I wasn't here. They'd be better off if they didn't have to take care of me. And that's for some folks, particularly chronic illness, or maybe an end of life kind of diagnosis that comes about, or something that's going to be a significant battle. That's something that a professional can help you deal with those feelings. There are resources available, but that's a somewhat typical response for folks, but can become really, really scary and really overwhelming.
Thank you so much for offering all of your expertise on this topic. There's so many people who think they're the only one having these feelings inside of them, and they just need to buck up. And you've made it clear that this is a common experience. Are there any final words either one of you would like to share with the people listening?
I always like to just encourage people to be kind to themselves. I mean, you imagine that a person has experienced a sudden illness, perhaps a huge diagnosis that's life-changing. They're doing the very best that they can. They must. That is what we all strive to do. We do the very best we can. Be gentle, because again, you are actively in a healing process, and the more gentle you are with yourself, the better able your body is to heal. And so we say that a lot to folks, but I think in this context, again, it rings true again.
Yeah, it's not just a thing we say. We have to do it.
You have to do it.
Michelle, do you have anything you want to add?
I think just recognizing that you'll be okay. You talked about being kind to yourself, and I think that's it. Being forgiving to yourself, treating yourself, and trying to sort of think about what's going on with you the way you would if this was your best friend, or if this was the person that you loved the most in your life, and they were going through the things that you were going through. What kind of messages would you be giving to that person? How would you be talking to them? How would you be caring for them? Do that for yourself.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And thank you all for listening to CommQuest Hope Discovered podcast. Have a great day.